the public to please mute yourself when you are not speaking to prevent distractions and unwanted disruptions. Staff will be enforcing this and monitoring those in attendance for questions during public hearings. During the public hearing portion of the meeting, staff will call on those who have requested to speak in the order they signed up. Following that, anyone else who wishes to speak will be recognized. For those who wish to speak tonight, please remember to address all comments and questions to the chair, and keep your comments brief and on point. If you agree with the previous comment, simply indicate your agreement. To expedite tonight's meeting, I will ask all those who wish to testify or believe that they may testify to please be sworn in. Please raise your right hand. And I can't see you, but we'll assume you're raising your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer, I do. I don't hear. Staff, do we have anyone signed up to speak? I know we have someone from one of the applications who made a statement prior to airing.
Oh, that's 217 South Main. Yes, we're here, and yes, I do.
Okay.
I do believe that there is somebody who's supposed to be on the call. We don't have them on a list, but for the third case, 22-400-01.
Yes,
Right,
Gwen Walters is here on the screen there. Miss Walters, did you hear? Did you
Yes.
say I do on the swearing in?
I do.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And
Before
then
we
the
begin
previous
the
also-
agenda portion of the meeting, we'll ask staff to call the roll.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Here.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Here.
Commissioner Wiley,
Here.
Commissioner Young,
Here.
and Vice Chair Preston.
Here. Staff, we have a quorum.
We have 5 members present.
Thank you. The first item we'll speak to is the minutes from the December the 14th. Commissioners, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
And do you all find them in good order, or is there anyone that finds an exception that needs to be amended?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the Planning Commission meetings minutes from December 14th.
Okay. This is not an item that necessary for a motion. We will accept the minutes as presented by staff. Thank you, Commissioner Wiley. All right. The first item on the agenda in our public hearing is a case that has been continued. That's case number 21-100-17, rezoning at 501 and 505 North Dajian Street. A request by Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity to rezone the property from Industrial 1 and General Commercial Historic Landmark to Service Commercial / Historic Landmark. Staff, would you give your report?
Yes. Before I do that, though, I want to excuse me. I want to make sure that we have someone here from representing this project.
Do we have the applicant? I think it's indicated on the application, President Christina, or CEO Christina Leakey. Madam Leakey, are you present? Madam President Leakey, are you present? Is there anyone here on behalf of Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity? Staff, do we proceed or do we table it for
Well, I can go on to the next case, and in the interim, while you're in your discussions, I can make some phone calls.
All right, why don't we then proceed with the next item on the agenda, case 22-200-01, special use permit at 217 South Main, a request by Jeremy and Amy Taylor for body art services. I think staff there present. Would you give a report?
Okay, let me call this up real quick. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to share again. Okay, I need to unshare. No, I don't need to do that. Okay, I've unshared that. I need to.
While you're doing that, did you ask another staff to check on the status of the first applicant?
Yeah, if Stuart could call these numbers, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Chairman Preston, if I may, can we go back to the first consent agenda and actually take a vote on that? I think.
Well, we're not going to table it yet. We simply.
No, I'm talking about the minutes.
Oh, the minutes?
Yeah, typically we have a vote on the consent agenda.
Well, historically, we have simply, the chair has historically accepted the minutes as presented.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Just want to make sure.
But if there's a protocol change, we can certainly go back and take a motion.
Just because they're on the consent agenda now, there may be other items on the consent agenda, like a plat or something like that, that would need a vote. So it's just easier if we're consistent on always getting a vote for the plan, for the consent agenda.
Then let's go back and we will take the motion. I think Commissioner Wiley made a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Lady Ferguson, second. We have a motion by Commissioner Wiley, a second by Commissioner Ferguson. Staff, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Preston.
Yes. Thank you. That's been carried. Where do we want to go back to? Brian, are you prepared?
I'm gonna go to the body art case.
Excellent.
So,
Take your report.
okay. So this is case 22-200-01, Jeremy and Amy Taylor, special use permit in the former Tommy's Tavern on Main Street, just north of Walnut. They're on the east side of the street. As you can see on this vicinity map, you can see where it is in relation to that intersection. So the surrounding zonings, this of course is in the square area. So C2 zoning in all directions around, including the residential uses to the east, actually, on the north side of Walnut there and along south side of Kansas are in fact zoned residential, although they are single family use. And of course, you got businesses all along Main Street there that are zone C2. The comprehensive plan, of course, sees this as a mixed-use area around the square. And this is the plot plan. The square area actually doesn't require off-street parking, but this business will have plenty of their own to provide off-street parking, as you can see, because most of this lot going back to Lynn is mostly pavement with the building there in the southwest corner up by the sidewalk on Main Street.
Brian, if you're not sharing your screen currently, we're not seeing a presentation from you.
Shoot.
Well, Commissioner Wiley, I'm getting a report.
Yeah, I was getting it too.
I don't see it.
You don't see you don't see this thing on the screen?
Nope. Hmm.
Okay.
You guys are all seeing it?
It
Yes.
wasn't in the same fashion as previously, but there was something on the screen, so it could be whether you're in gallery view or not.
Okay, I just did a share again.
All right, it's back on the screen.
I see it.
And if
Commissioner Wiley, can you see it now?
I still don't see it.
Anthony Mitchell wouldn't mind muting, that would be helpful.
Okay, so are you the only person?
Okay, I just came up. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So everybody's been seeing my presentation as I did it. Otherwise, except, okay. Okay. The applicants are applying to open a tattoo studio, basically here at 217 South Main Street, which is the former location of Tommy's Tavern. The business intends to operate mainly during the day and will be by appointment only. There will only be 2 tattoo artists working at any time. The former tavern site has off-street parking located at the rear of the property. However, these spots will need to be clearly striped, and a van-accessible handicap parking space must be provided, marked and signed. The owner has indicated there will be minimal exterior improvements. Basically, they're going to paint the building. Additionally, the opaque metal and wood doors should be installed on the back of the existing trash enclosure at the back of the building, so that would screen the enclosure. The limit on the number of body art shops in the city is now at 8, and an increase from the 7 due to the city's 2020 census figures that we just got that show us at up to 123,000 people. Currently, there are 6 locations in the city. So, this is a straight-on view of, well, it's not straight-on view. It's looking southeast at the old Tommy's. You can see it's already had one paint job. That old paint job is already gone. It was there previously. So there is the south side looking north in the adjacent properties parking lot. And this is looking straight at the front door. And then this is looking up Main Street to the north. And looking south down Main Street to the south. And this is from Lynn. So we're from that alley street, Lynn, behind Main Street, looking at the back of the building there. So up Lynn to the north towards City Hall, and back down Lynn back toward Walnut. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm ready to take any questions you may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions before we entertain the applicant? We'll defer.
Commissioner Preston, actually.
Go ahead.
So minimal changes to the building is the only thing that is listed, painting the building. And I would be curious from the applicant what will be done on the inside as well.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions of staff before we entertain the applicant? Okay. Will the applicant please give their name and address for the record?
Hi, my name is Jeremy Taylor, Jeremy Taylor.
Thank you. And your address, your home address?
My home address is 717 Southwest 29th Street, Blue Springs, Missouri, 64015.
Thank you. Do you have a report or anything else that you would like to add to what the city staff presented?
Not on the outside of the building, no. On the inside of the building, I would like it to be known that we are going more for an art gallery type feel than I guess you would say your typical tattoo parlor. Me and my wife have owned one of the largest tattoo shops in Kansas City for the last 10 years. And we worked 12 to midnight shifts and 10 or 12 artists underneath us and full parking lots of cars. And since then, we have had our son who is autistic, and he is 3 years old. And we are going to take a step back from the loud, long hours of tattooing and do more of a private studio with an art gallery kind of feel, and some sculpting and some other mediums of art as well.
Any additional comments?
This is Neon Pat Schuman, and I'm the owner of 217 South Main.
All right. Give your full name again, please.
It's Neon, M as in Mary, Y-O-N-G, and the last name is Pak, P-A-K hyphen Schuman, S-C-H-U-M-A-N.
Okay. And your address, please.
My home address is 329 Southeast Chelsea Lane, Lee Summit.
Zip code, please.
64063.
Thank you very much. And what information would you like to add, please?
As far as the inside of the building, I understand that, it was Tommy's Tavern, basically known as a dive bar. It has been completely removed inside. There'll be 2 bathrooms, a mop room, and then some storage area, but it's one big open space. And we've had it completely, as far as inside the epoxy floors, we are working to where it is going to allow the tenants to have that art gallery feel and be able to display various arts and sculptures while they also do their artwork as tattooing.
All right. Thank you very much. Any additional comments? Is there anyone else would like to speak in favor of this project? Is there anyone that would speak, who's present, would want to speak in opposition to this project? Hearing none. Commissioners, do you have questions of the applicant or the owner of the project?
Bill, I have a question. Mr. Nesbitt.
Okay, please announce yourself. I can't hear you.
Mr. Nesbitt.
Mr. Commissioner Nesbitt, thank you. Go ahead.
They said they're going to have more employees. Is that what they're saying? So basically, they're only going to have 2 at one time. and they said they're going to have several studios in there. Is that correct? Or is it just one studio with them doing the tattooing?
The Taylors, would you answer that question, please?
Yeah, no, not more employees. We're downsizing. The only employees at our new studio will be me and my wife. We will not be hiring any other employees. There will be no apprentices. There will be no desk personnel. There will be no other artists. My wife does more painting and sculpting than she does tattoos. She tattoos a lot less than I do, and I do more tattoos than anything else. We will be a private studio by appointment only. I believe right now I'm booked out with one appointment a day for the next 7 months. So it'll be more of a, me and my wife come in at 10 a.m. She does her sculpting and her painting. I do my appointment for the day, and then we close up and go home to be with our kids.
What are your standard business hours? And I know it's by appointment only, but you will operate within what time parameters?
Most of my appointments last about 5 hours, and we plan on opening around 11 a.m. So 11 to 4 will be our goal for operation hours.
Thank you.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Thank you.
Right.
Chairman
Commissioner
Preston,
Ferguson,
I have a question.
go ahead.
This is Virginia. Jeremy, what kind of signage are you going to put on the outside?
To be honest, I don't plan on putting a lot of signage. We're going for a much more low-key environment. The people that I tattoo most of the Kansas City Chiefs as well as some Dallas Cowboys players, some Green Bay players, and they already know me. Most of the people that book appointments with me have their appointments booked for several months in advance. I'm not looking for any walk-in traffic. I don't want any bright neon signs or anything like that. It's going to be a very low-key kind of artsy-fartsy vibe, if you will.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Taylor, will you have any employees as cashiers for the artsy side or any artists that would be working or presenting?
No, sir. Just me and my wife. If you guys want to know the truth, a lot of the reason why we're downsizing is because we do not want employees. We've done this for the last decade. Lots of customers, lots of employees, and we're just really kind of past that in our careers.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Any additional questions?
I'm wondering if the applicants are aware of the recommendations that the city has made, the 5 recommendations.
No, this is Beyond Tech, the owner of 217, and I did go to attend a meeting with the Independent Square Design Committee, but I have not received anything official as far as the recommendations, and I'll be more than happy to hear them out.
All right. Have you had an opportunity to review the staff's recommendations on the 5 items listed? And
no,
that was
sir.
cited by staff Brian Parker.
No, sir.
Brian, would you review those, please?
Yeah. Did you get the code to be able to participate tonight, correct? From me?
Yes, I did.
That was an attachment to it.
I didn't receive, all I received was a code and a link to log on.
Okay. It should have had an attachment to that. Maybe it didn't attach correctly, but anyway, those 5 that he was referring to, this special use permit is restricted 217 South Main Street only.
Okay.
An opaque door, wood or metal, shall be installed on the existing trash enclosure.
Okay.
The parking lot will be clearly striped.
Correct.
A van accessible handicap space with marking and sign will be provided.
Yes.
and the applicant will obtain and maintain all applicable city and state licenses and comply with all health requirements.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Only got 4.
I only got 4 of those. Was there one that I missed?
Oh, I read all 5.
The opaque door, the parking lot stripe, the van accessibility clearly marked, and the applicant will maintain all city and state regulations.
Yeah, the first one was it's restricted to
Oh,
217.
And
South
I think I talked to you about this before, Brian. I will be able to meet all of those guidelines. The only one that we may need to wait on till spring, and that's just due to the weather, is the parking lot being the parking lot getting the stripes and or that, and because I've talked to 2 or 3 asphalt companies, and they said just with the temperature they're not going to guarantee anything. So,
Right.
but definitely all that can be met.
Okay.
Mhm. All right. Commission members, any further questions?
Yes, Commissioner Preston.
Go ahead,
I just-
Commissioner Young.
I would just like to make sure, because it sounds like based on the owner's comments that the inside and the inside of what used to be Tommy's has already been done and catered towards this business being approved. And I just wanted to kind of confirm that.
Actually, it hasn't. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but when I had to evict my previous tenant, which was the owner of Tommy's Tavern, there was a gap of time before I could actually take possession of the building, and during that time, the building was broken into and completely trashed. So what I've had to do is clear out what I could and start from scratch, which it was kind of like an unanswered prayer or a blessing that I wasn't really asking for in this sense. And so it's been completely cleared out. It's just one big open space so more like a white box, if you want to say. You know, it already had 2 bathrooms and a mop room, and all we did is upgrade that by cleaning it out, drywall, you know, to make sure, you know, from the holes that were in there, the spray painting that was done. It actually hasn't even been painted inside yet until I find and get approved for a tenant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does staff have any additional comments or questions before we close the public portion of this discussion?
No.
Any commissioner with any additional questions? Then we will close the public hearing portion of this. And commissioners, do you have any discussion? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Lady Commissioner,
I move that we approve case 22-200-01, special use permit, 217 South Main Street, with the 5 recommendations.
thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
Madam Ferguson. All right. Staff, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle, Commissioner Michelle,
He's not on the meeting.
I
He's
don't
not
think
on.
Commissioner Michelle is on.
if he could get in front of the camera, he could just do a thumbs up, I suppose.
He's not on.
Brian, he's not present at the meeting
I
tonight.
think you're looking at
Oh, I'm looking at Mitchell.
Anthony Mitchell.
Anthony Mitchell, I'm sorry. Okay, I misread that. Okay. Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. We have 5 yeses, no nos. The vote of this is approval without opposition. Congratulations and best wishes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. The next item, Brian, do we have any status on the habitat matter?
Yes, our applicant is here.
Then why don't we take a report and proceed?
Okay. So this is case 21-117, the location of the Truman Habitat Restore and the old Young School. As you can see on the vicinity map, where it is about a block north of Truman and about another block and a half east of Nolan Road there. The property is actually 2 lots right now that will be combined. Because they're going to be combined, they have to have one zoning. And the current building on the north is I-1 and the one on the south is C2. And so the combined single property would have a C3 zoning. This property is in a neighborhood that is zoned I-1 all around industrial. Even the residential neighborhood to the east is, though it's used as single family, is zoned industrial as well. And as you can see from the comprehensive plan, though, the larger area is actually envisioned to remain a residential neighborhood. And this is the actual aerial photograph showing the red part to the south is the Young School, which is C2, and the part to the north is again the I-1 section. This is the map of the surrounding properties located within 185 feet. The applicant is requesting to resume 2 lots with 2 existing structures, one that's I-1 and the other that's C2 historic landmark. The old Young School is a historic landmark, to C3 and C3 HL historic landmark. To permit this single, what will become a single property to have the same zoning throughout. The 121,516 square foot northern lot contains the Habitat Restore Recycling Center, and the 128,000 square foot southern lot contains the historic Young School, which would be used for office space as well as a homeownership education center. Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity, Inc. has owned the property since 2011. Habitat Restore has been in operation since 2012. Until now, the Young School has been vacant while the Truman Habitat raised funds for its renovation. Truman Habitat intends to preserve the historic young school and return it to use for these educational homeownership support services. The southern end of the property, again, being the site of a historic school with landmark status, was reviewed by the city's Heritage Commission on January 6th, prior to this Planning Commission meeting. Staff recommends approval of this rezoning request, and I will go real quickly through some of the pictures so you'll get a better orientation of the neighborhood. This is from Dodgen, looking east up the historic steps that take you up to the old young school. This is right up by the front door. You reach this portion of the property by driving through the portion to the north, which is accessed by this driveway here on the north side of the property that people use to get to the Restore building. Is this gray building right here. And then this is looking north at the neighborhood that abuts north of the Restore building. This is Dodgen looking north to the west of the property. This is a Bible college across the street, basically across from the Restore part of the property. Here's another view of the properties to the northwest. And then this is properties lying to the west of the old school. And this is looking down side street back toward Nolan Road. So again, staff recommends approval of this case, and I'm ready to take any questions you may have.
Commissioners, do you have questions? Then why don't we, is the applicant present?
I am. This is Christina Lakey. I'm the CEO of Truman Heritage Habitat. My apologies to the commission for holding you in delay.
Thank you, Madam President. Will you give your full name and home address for the record?
Christina Lakey, 2310 South Crenshaw, Independence, Missouri.
Madam Lakey, do you have anything to add to the staff's report at this time?
Nothing to add. I'm just happy to answer any questions you might have.
No nuances that we should be aware of from a historical perspective? The overall good intentions of the order?
We're very excited to have the opportunity to restore what the city has designated as a city landmark to reuse as an education center, which was what it was originally established to be. The history behind the Young School is it was the second public school built by the Independence District for children during the period of segregation in public schools. So it's a very rich history and sadly an untold story that we are excited to be able to share. We'll have an interpretive center in one of the classrooms that will allow us to make that history available to the community. And we really are thrilled that we'll have the opportunity to integrate that history into the education offering that we're having with the community's homeowners and partner organizations that we work with to bring family success through homeownership in the Eastern Jackson County area. So just an exciting opportunity for us to put ourselves, anchor ourselves down into the community as a longstanding committed partner to community and neighborhood revitalization. And then again, that opportunity to share the rich history of the Young School and with the community is exciting.
If my research, Madam President, why don't you tell us about, isn't this going to be the first time Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity in Eastern Jackson County is going to actually have its own home base?
Yes, actually, one that we own anyway. We have been for over 30 years taken in by other property owners where we've really relied on the goodwill of commercial property owners to office or to house our offices. This will be the first time that we have a home of our own. We're an organization that works hard to help families who would not otherwise have the opportunity achieve home ownership and really start to build financial stability and success from there. So for us to not have had a home of our own has been a little bit difficult, but we've worked very hard to raise the resources to establish the presence here at the Dodgen property, and we think we're going to be a wonderful resource for the community there.
Thank you, Madam President. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in favor of this project? Hearing none. Is there anyone present that would speak in opposition to this particular project? Hearing none. Does the staff have any additional comments? Or does the applicant have any further comments, or does the commissioners have any questions? Hearing none, then we will close the public hearing portion of this, and further comments from the public will not be recognized. The commission members, are there any discussions regarding this case? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'm really excited about this. I think it's fantastic. I want to thank you guys for doing this for this neighborhood and for this city. And I'm behind you all the way.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else with comment or a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Madam Commissioner.
I move that we approve case 22-100-17, rezoning Truman Heritage Habitat for Humanity from I-1 and C2 to C3 and C3-HL.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
And help me out. Who seconded that?
Mr. Nesbitt.
Mr. Nesbitt, thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Staff, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, this case has been approved. The application will be forwarded to City Council with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We want to thank the applicant for the good works, and congratulations from us to you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Next case, case 22-400-01, home business permit at 16804 East Salisbury Road. Gwen Walters seeks approval for a dog grooming business. Staff, will you give us a report and recognize the additional information sent in?
Yes, can everyone see the PowerPoint on the screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, so the applicant, Gwen Walters, seeks approval to operate a dog grooming business in her home at 16804 East Salisbury Road. Ms. Walters seeks to operate this operate a dog bathing and grooming business at that location. She is a certified dog groomer and previously worked at an area business, but has decided to operate from her home. Her home is a cream-colored single-story building containing about 835 square feet with a single-car garage accessed by a double-car paved driveway. She intends to convert a rear bedroom for the business activities, which will require the installation of plumbing into the room. There will be no outside employees. Generally, she will operate Monday through Friday with perhaps an appointment or two on the weekends. The house was inspected and approved by the city's fire division. Okay, we'll go through the pictures here. And okay, this is the location of the site. There's 291 highway on Salisbury Road. It may be 3 or 4 blocks to the east. Whoops. Okay, this is a surrounding zoning. Her property is in the little purple triangle there. Salisbury Road on the south. You can see the whole neighborhood here is on single-family residential. This is the comprehensive plan. It shows residential neighborhoods for this entire area, which is not surprising. It's pretty well-developed site. This is an overhead view, an aerial view of her property. You can see the house faces Salisbury Road. There's a single car garage on the west side of the house where that little white car sits by itself. And then there's a wider driveway that extends on the west side of the house. It actually goes into a fenced-in rear yard. This is the front of her house. Again, you can see the garage door there. And then the other area she's got currently has I think she's doing some renovations to the house. That is a trash dumpster for, I assume, contents of the house she's working on. This is the house that's immediately to the east of the property. It's very similar to the applicant's house. In fact, most of these houses along here are very similar in design and shape. Here we're looking, excuse me, looking down East Salisbury Road to the east. The applicant's property would be on the left side of the road. It's basically right across from, just out of the picture here on the left. This is a house that's across the street from this applicant site. Houses that are on the south side of Salisbury Road here are a little larger, generally 2 car garages, multi-story type of properties. And we go just slightly to the southwest. And again, these are larger houses that are south of Salisbury. Same type of deal, double car garage, multi-story, more square footage. And here we're looking up Salisbury Road to the west. The applicant's property would be on the right again. As you can see, Salisbury Road has a 3-lane profile through most of this section of the street. And then this is the house that's immediately to the east, to the west. And you can see the trash enclosure there on the right. That's the applicant's, that was in front of the applicant's house. Staff does recommend approval of this home business with the following conditions. The business shall operate only between the hours of 9 a.m. through 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 a.m. through 12 noon on Saturday and Sunday. The applicant's business will provide a grooming service for only 1 dog at a time. No customer dogs will be kept overnight on the premises. Number 4 is proper permits shall be obtained for any plumbing, mechanical, building, or related work on the premises. Then number 5 is no business license may be issued until all the work has been complete, inspected, and approved by the building permit division. And number 6 is maintain all required licenses. But I can tell you, we did receive a letter from a neighbor that was in favor of the application. that you received in your packet, or actually through the email. And then earlier today, we received basically it was a petition more or less from a neighbor that lives to the north of this property. It backs up to this property. He is not in favor of it. He is on the call on the show tonight, and he can speak to his reasons why he is not in favor of it. So we had one against and one in favor that we're aware of. And that's my presentation. If you have any questions.
Brian, did you indicate that the letter writer in support was present?
Well, the letter writer is Sally Crane, and I'm not sure that she is. Now, the person that is against the application is present online.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff at this time? Hearing none, will the applicant please give their name and address for the record?
Bill, one thing. This is Mr. Nesbitt.
Yes.
Hey, I don't think you've sworn in anybody to talk on this one because I don't think they were at the hand, so you need to verify that.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Are we correct there with the applicant? I don't think
I think that Ms.
present
Walters,
at the time we swore in.
I think Ms. Walters was sworn in. I'm not sure about the other gentleman. Mr. David, excuse me, Mr. Mitchell. He is on the line here. I'm not sure if he was sworn in or not.
All right. Is that Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Mitchell, can you unmute? Here's what we're going to do. Are you going to speak in favor of this or in opposition? All right, then I will come back to you in a moment. Thank you. And in the meantime, that'll give Ford you opportunity to figure out how to unmute. Will the applicant, thank you, Commissioner Nesbitt. Will the applicant please give their full name and address for the record?
My name is Gwen Walters, and my address is 16804 East Salisbury Road, Independence, Missouri, 64056.
Thank you. Do you have any additional comments that you would like to add or amplify or clarify?
No, not at the moment. No.
All right. In that the public cannot see this on the screen, and that is the letter from one supporting. Would staff consider reading that so that those listening on City 7 would be privileged to the support for this?
Sure. Okay, this is made out to Jill Dotson, who is an employee here with Community Development. And it says, I live next door to Miss Walters and am writing to advise that I am not opposed to Miss Walters operating a dog grooming business from her home at 16804 East Salisbury Road. I have lived in this house at 16808 Salisbury Road for 51 years. When I moved in, Gwen Walters was an infant living with her parents next door. She grew up and moved away, but then returned in 2014 to care for her dad, who was dying, and he did pass away in 2015. Miss Walters has adopted her grandchildren who live with her. She graduated from the Grooming Project, which is a program designed to help parents empower children to become self-reliant through job training in the high-demand, high-pay trade of dog grooming. Excuse me. dogs would be groomed by appointment and would be in the grooming salon. They would not be disruptive to the neighborhood. If you have any questions, please call her please call me at, and I won't read the phone number unless someone wants me to. And she is a retired social worker, and her name is Sally Crane at 16808 Salisbury Road.
Thank you, staff. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none. Is there anyone present that would like to speak in opposition?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell, permit me to swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Thank you. We'll entertain your comments, Mr. Mitchell.
Yes. I've lived in this neighborhood about 17 years. I'm a renter here. I know Gwen. I know Sally, her neighbor next door. I am an avid dog lover. I have dogs myself. Gwen has groomed one of my dogs and did a professional job. My only concern at this point is probably going to lose her as a friend, but it is what it is. She has 5 dogs that are hers. Love her dogs, give them treats. Sometimes, as dogs do, Sally, her lady next door, has 2-3 dogs. I have 2 myself. When they get excited, they bark. They run the fence line, bark, bark, bark. This goes on constantly. Not this week, I guess because of cold weather, or Gwen knew this meeting was coming and it's better to keep her dogs in. I think the dogs are smarter than Gwen, and she wanted to stay in where it's warm. But anyway, my only concern is the dogs barking, running the fence line, and this happens quite a bit. That is my only concern, the constant running of the fence line and the 5 dogs barking. I know that Gwen has been told from animal control that you're only allowed a certain amount of dogs. She does have 5. I know that's over the limit. I love all 5. But I think this is going to be a problem in the future if she does do this business, because parking is going to be one of her problems just in her driveway. I think if she has 2 or more customers, they're going to pull down next door to Sally, her neighbor, into my driveway coming in. Like I said, I'm not the property owner, but I rent the property. I've been here 17 years, and I think they're going to be parking on my property. That is my only concern, just the dogs barking.
Mr. Mitchell, what's your home address for the record?
Oh,
my address is 117 North Kendall Drive.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Mitchell.
Yes, sir.
Do you have concerns with the existing dogs, or do you have concerns with the application for the dog grooming home business?
I have concerns with both. When she's busy with her new business, while she's grooming a dog, the other dogs possibly will be outside in the back, which faces my backyard. And, you know, just constant dog barking, running the fence line barking. Like I say, I love dogs. I love Gwen's dogs. I love Sally's dogs, her neighbor. I have 2 dogs. But when they do go into a tizzy, She never comes out to get her dogs and bring them in. And that's my only concern.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Mr. Mitchell? Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to this particular application? Does the applicant care to respond to any of the comments or questions?
No, I have no comments.
Thank you. Does staff have any additional comments before I close the public hearing?
No, not at this time.
Any commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant or staff?
Bill, I have one, Mr. Nesbitt.
Go ahead, Commissioner Nesbitt.
This is to staff. Have we had any, I guess, reports or anything about the 5 dogs making noise, or has there been any anything like that to the city?
I don't know. That's an animal control issue. We just received this today, so I haven't really checked on that. If he says
that is really concerning to me, because I even as me being neighbors, I don't like hearing dogs bark at night all night long, especially if you have 5 of them. That is kind of a problem that I see. And I thought our city regulates how many dogs we can have. So 2, is it not?
I believe it's actually 3, but it's less than 5.
Okay. So we do have a problem there, I see.
Staff, can we entertain, and perhaps this is a question for legal, can we entertain an application from a source wherein they're presently in violation of city code?
Mr. Chairman, it doesn't appear that they're in violation of city code for the matter of the application. However, the concern by the neighbor does raise issues that are related to the application. It may warrant at least postponing consideration of this matter until there can be further investigation into it, and then bring it back at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the commission once we have additional information based on the information that was submitted.
Thank you, Councilor. Commissioners, do you have comment or questions? Commissioner Wiley.
I think it's a separate issue.
I hear you on that, Commissioner. Anyone else with a comment or question?
I was just going to say, Commissioner Preston, that
Commissioner Young,
especially with the letter that we received in favor of this, that if for some reason for any commissioners on the board or anybody watching this that will be watching it, if this is the first time that you've heard of the Grooming Project, I would highly encourage you to see what that organization is about, because it has affected positively hundreds of women and their career path and their lives and the things that it teaches them. And so it meant a lot to see that she was a graduate of the Grooming Project, and it shows where the applicant's heart is, and it shows the things that she's gone through in her life and her attempts to try and make her life a little bit better for herself. But I do understand this dog and animal control is probably a separate issue. So if we would like to continue this, then that would make sense to me. But I would encourage anybody watching this to look at the Grooming Project as an organization. It is important to so many people. So that is all.
Thank you, Commissioner Young.
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify or at least add to what I had said previously, I do agree with the commissioners that point out that this is a separate issue, and it is something I believe that city staff pointed out, is the fact that it is not even enforced through this department. It is enforced through a different department. So that could be addressed through a different channel with respect to whether there's an ordinance violation or not is a separate issue. So my only point was that, considering the fact that this particular applicant happens to be potentially in violation of a dog, a number of dog ordinances, and then to add additional dogs to the mix, I can see where you could draw a correlation there. So certainly if the commission did decide they wanted to go ahead and make a decision on this evening, one way or the other, it could and should still be looked into from other city departments based on the information received this evening.
Thank you again, Councilor.
Which would be the responsibility of staff to get that, not the commission. So
it does appear that these matters really are linked. If we were talking about a home tech-based business, not linked to 5 dogs, it would appear that those would be separate matters. However, we're talking about a home-based business for grooming dogs, wherein the applicant has 5 dogs already. Something in me intuitively say we should afford this applicant an opportunity to remedy and comply, and then come back before this commission and probably receive the approval that I think every one of these commissioners is probably inclined to give, especially in light of the comments by Commissioner Young. Commissioners, your thoughts?
Commissioner Preston, I would agree. So I don't know if the next step would be that we just continue this to the next, and as more information develops, in which case I would be happy to make my first motion.
Do I hear any additional comments from any other commissioner?
I have an additional comment. My comment is to what end, or I mean, what happens if there's extra dogs, then what happens to the 2 extra dogs? I volunteer at a shelter every weekend. We are full. There is no room for any more dogs in the metro area. So my concern, these dogs are in a home and safe. And so my concern is automatically what happens to the extra dogs.
May I speak? May I speak?
Who's requesting?
This is Gwen Walters.
Madam Walters, proceed.
Yes. Let me give you a little backstory on how I have acquired. I had 4 of my own dogs. My best friend died from breast cancer last August, and I took her dog because she knew he would be well taken care of with me. And he's 12 years old, and it has been brought to my attention. So I called the animal control, and the woman that I spoke to suggested that I take the 12-year-old dog to the vet and have him put to sleep. Well, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. He's just old. So, cause I was asking her, what would happen if I surrendered these dogs? She said automatically the 12-year-old would be put to sleep. And then I fostered a dog for a girl who was going through River of Refuge with her kids. And she was supposed to get the dog back in March. And when she got out of River of Refuge, the place that she got to move to was not taking dogs. And so that was a foster fill for me. I'm an animal lover. All my dogs are up to date on shots. They're all well taken care of. I've got, fillers out on Facebook trying to rehome, a couple of dogs. I just haven't found a home for them yet. And it would break my heart if I had to put my 12-year-old dog that that was my best friend's dog that passed away from breast cancer. It would break my heart. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioners? Any additional comments before we close the public hearing portion of this?
Commissioner Nesbitt here again. My question would be to Gwen, would it be possible for her to put up a privacy fence that would help with keeping the dogs from looking out at neighbors and barking? That would be a question. I don't know if she could afford something like that or not. That's a question.
I could check into something like that. I know that they have, I have a tall chain link fence. I know they make those things that you weave in and out of the, I don't know what they're called, but you can weave them in and out of the fence. I know they sell things like that. I could probably afford something like that.
Commissioners, any additional comments? Then,
Mr. Chair, if I may add, this does have that condition that only one dog at a time. And obviously, if there are issues associated with approval of this application, that can potentially warrant maybe revoking of that. So there is always that kind of fallback if there is a problem, if this does get approved.
I'd also like to add there's a provision that no dog can be kept overnight.
right. I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this. Commissioners, your thoughts, comments, motions, some modified motions?
Bill, Mr. Nesbitt here again. Would it be too much? Would it be too much to add another recommendation of a privacy fence be added to this, or is that beyond what we can do? Is it the staff going to recommend?
You're a commissioner, and we can certainly entertain that.
Okay, I would. Okay, well then I would like to make.
What would be your language on that?
My language was that there be some type of privacy fence made on all three sides of the rear grounds, so to help keep from the dog noise.
So we're going to say enclose the rear yard in 6-foot privacy fence?
Not 6-foot privacy fence. She talked about getting that weaving stuff, which I know is a little bit cheaper probably than the privacy fence. It's just some way to make it so it's not so easy for dogs to see out and then start barking because they see something. Because I know my dog does that. So that's why that would probably help with the neighbors.
Okay, so it would be enclose the rear yard by adding slats to the existing fence.
Whatever the applicant sees feasible for her to do.
And it could be as simple as, rather than being very specific about what type of material is used to opaque the fence, is essentially that the applicant would opaque the currently see-through fence on the three sides of the backyard to reduce potential for animals to make noise, and that way, if she has to take her dogs outside while she's conducting business, that reduces the concern that was raised by the property owner. Again, if this is something that the commission would rather not have done through this permit, there obviously, I think as Mr. Arroyo pointed out, is we have enforcement measures so that if there was a complaint about this, that could run through those channels as well. So sometimes simple is easier. So just thinking through that.
Okay. That sounds great.
Commissioner Preston.
Yes, Commissioner Young.
So with that, additional stipulation, I'm not sure that I would like to add that because, I mean, we don't know that that is enough for the neighbor's concerns. And then in which case, because he didn't mention that in his comments that the fence needs to be different or anything. So we would just be adding an additional burden to the homeowner for something that wasn't required of her to begin with.
Would you not think, though, the dogs are responding to visible stimuli, and therefore, if the fence was made, put a visible barrier that is not cost disadvantage to the applicant, that it may reduce some of the activities of the dogs? Do you think?
It's possible, but I'm also not a dog owner. We only have a hedgehog, so our animal concerns are a lot different. But if everybody else is on board and if that's what it takes, I just wouldn't want to add additional financial burden to a situation where, as staff has pointed out, there's already some things in place that will help alleviate this. So,
well, I think the thing that the applicant will probably become aware of is city code. And sometimes the heart's bigger than capacity. And we have to live as neighbors, and the neighbors have the right of quiet enjoyment of their property. So not splitting the baby, but accommodating and affording her at least the opportunity to go forward, recognizing that no license is a permanent license.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Council, please.
We had Commissioner Nesbitt had essentially made a motion for creating a condition for opaquing. That motion has not been seconded at this point, and I would highly recommend that if there were any conditions that were added to the application this evening, that would be a separately moved and seconded and voted on matter
prior to
the overall approval, and that would give the full commission the opportunity to weigh in on a vote with respect to whether a condition should be added that could be separate from the vote on the application itself.
All right. Well, it appears we've had substantial discussion. We've had a motion. Do we have a second to Commissioner Nesbitt's motion?
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like that motion dies for lack of a second.
It sounds like that motion dies for the lack of a motion. Any further comments? The chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Madam
I move that we approve case 22-400-01, a home business permit 16804 East Salisbury Road for a dog grooming business with the 6 recommendations that staff has made.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Ferguson. Staff, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Ferguson?
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt?
No.
Was that a no?
No.
Commissioner Wiley?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Preston?
Yes.
Okay.
We have 1 no, 4 yeses. This application is approved. We wish you Godspeed and all the very best. And I do suggest that you be mindful of the city's requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have to bear with me here, ma'am. I changed this.
Go ahead.
Hang on here. I'm going to change this over to the next one here.
All right. The next item on the agenda is Case number 21-03. Let me, 1 second here. Let me. Yeah, 21-03, preliminary plat MacB Custom Homes LLC. Staff, would you give a report?
Okay, just a second here. Well, I can.
Staff?
I don't know what's going on with this thing. I can't get this thing to come up.
Well, we're on hold.
I don't know. That choose the application. No, where's where you are? This? Yeah. No, I can't get out of this. Okay. Choose a screen. And you need pick application. And you need to. Where's that? Well, it's a thing. Could you open it up down here? Obviously, don't have a PowerPoint. Okay. Open the PowerPoint.
Stuart?
Yeah.
We all have our packet. I am certain the MacB group is fully familiar with this. I don't think the absence of the usual technical support is going to be a big encumbrance.
I should be have it here in just a second.
Take the time you need.
Joe, my question is, why isn't this on the consent agenda? Don't we normally approve these preliminary plats in the consent agenda?
In a regular situation.
I don't go to these enough, I guess. I don't have enough history with you all to know that. Most cities that I work with, because the preliminary plat is the only approval that has discretion, they treat those very seriously, because once you set the rules through a preliminary plat, there's no discretion at the final approval level.
Okay, am I dreaming?
Sorry.
I know final plats are on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the case, because as long as they check the box, those are non-discretionary. But there's a lot of discretion in preliminary plats getting set up.
That's my confusion. I got it. Thank you.
No worries. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, why this is on the regular agenda is because this is not a cut and dried preliminary plat. There's more to it than just your typical, mainly because of the road improvements to Artie Mines Road. Okay, now I'll get it. Okay.
Hey, Stuart and Brian, I just tried to share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yeah, I'm trying to do his presentation. Let's see. Let's see. There's only what's that? PowerPoint. Oh, Miranda's working. Oh, just hit open. Okay. Do you have that, Miranda?
Yeah, if you just want to tell me when to change slides, I can have it up for you.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, do you see it? Everybody have that?
We have the case on the screen.
Okay. Whoops. Okay. All right, sorry about that. Okay. McBee Custom Homes request approval of a revised preliminary plat for phases 2 and 3 of Meadowbrook Estates. The site is on the southeast corner of Eureka Road and Artie Mize Road. As you can see from the vicinity map, it's in the red circle of the existing subdivision part that is there, which is phase 1, was done 12, 15 years ago, approximately. Okay, this is the zoning for the area. As you can see, it's either some level of single-family residential or is zoned residential agriculture. Now, the green areas are the residential agriculture. Meadowbrook Estates here is kind of a large lot residential, and then further south there is the Saddlebrook Estates, which is also even larger lot, single family residential. Oops. Yeah, it won't be advanced. Okay, I need to, can you, Miranda, can you go ahead and advance the slide, please? Hello? Miranda, can you advance the slide?
I
It
am.
was advanced, do it.
But, well, I think I got the reason I'm looking for the comprehensive plan, which is the next slide.
It's up.
Oh, I'm not getting that here, so I guess I don't know what's going on with this.
Just go ahead and.
All right. Okay, here we are. Okay, the comprehensive plan envisions residential neighborhood uses for the site, along with most of the other property in the area, as you can see. This is an aerial view that shows the entire existing subdivision on the north side of Artie Mize, with the area encompassed by the preliminary plat just north of this subdivision that you see. You can see there are 4 street stubs that will continue into the next phases. This is the preliminary plat. It shows the existing subdivision along the south, which is adjoining Artie Mize Road, and its connections to the new phases to the project to the north, which are which is the darker portion with all the topo shown. That's the new proposed phase 2 and 3. Besides these lots that are part of this internal portion of the subdivision, there are also 4 lots along East Eureka Road, as you can see on the north. There's 2 on the west, 1 in the middle, and then a very large one, which is lot 104 on the east side and central north, I guess you could call it. Lot 104 is an area of significant topo combined with shallow bedrock. Okay, here we're going south on R.D. Mize, looking to the southeast at the hillside, which will be part of the project. That is that sort of mound that's in the middle of the screen with the trees on the top. You can see some of the homes from the existing Meadowbrook on the right side of the screen. Again, we're going south along R.D. Mize, southeast, I guess. This portion of sidewalk and improvement to this section that we're on now was done by the city a number of years ago. Here we're looking to the west at the western end of East 32nd Terrace. This street will continue to the northwest to include several lots in the subdivision swimming pool property. We're looking north from one of the street stubs in the middle of the site. This will continue on and connect up to another east-west street. And then looking north up Brook Ridge Court on the eastern end of the subdivision. This street will end in a cul-de-sac containing 7 or 8 lots. You are on Eureka Road looking at an area that will become 2 lots, actually. It's fairly flat. You can see the R.D. Mize Road off to the right. And on the left, there are some of the homes there in the existing subdivision. Okay, here we're standing on R.D. Mize looking northwest at the curve. Excuse me. We're on the, look, this is looking at the west side of R.D. Mize across from the subdivision. The Saddlebrook Estates is just up basically at the top of the hill there on the left. Here we're standing on R.D. Mize looking west and northwest at the curve. The existing subdivision is off to the right. It's a little playground set there of one of the homes that abut the R.D. Mize. Here we're on R.D. Mize looking to the southeast of the curve. The subdivision is on the left behind this row of trees and a stream which flows along R.D. Mize here. So it's not visible, but it's to the left. Again, there is Saddle Ridge on the right, up on the hill to the right. Staff does recommend approval of this project subject to the following conditions. In lieu of half-street improvements along R.D. Mize and Eureka Roads, the R.D. Mize curve shall be improved with a minimum radius of 35 for a 35 miles an hour roadway. The sidewalk shall be provided along the north side of R.D. Mize from Brook Ridge Court to the end of the existing sidewalk on R.D. Mize, which you saw in the picture there. The lot line is missing from lots 94 through 96, and the lot line between 96 and 97 should be reoriented. These should be corrected on the final plat. Number 3 is the existing utility easement across lots 66, 67, 68, and 103 must be vacated by separate action. The street names and addresses will be assigned at the final plat stage and be added to the final plat. Lots 54 and 55 must have a landscape screening along the rear property lines in accordance with the Unified Development Code section 14.503.13. A note should be included on the final plat to that effect. And then there is a stream buffer along the east side of R.D. Mize. The plat shows a drainage easement across lots 54 and 55. The drainage easement may serve as a stream buffer setback as was allowed in phase 1. The drainage easement must extend through lots 56 and 57. The plat must indicate no permanent structures can be placed in the drainage easement. Note indicating the drainage easement is a stream buffer must be included on the final plat. Go back to the final plat. You can see here these lots that have the that will require the are on here on the left. The swimming pool track is to the northwest corner of the subdivision. You can see the track I there. And you can see the topo on the subdivision on the preliminary plat shows that there'll be some significant grading going on out there to do this project. And you can answer any questions anyone has about this.
Thank you. Stuart, how did you arrive at the, and I think most of the commissioners are probably familiar with the curve that you're talking about, but how did you arrive at the 35 miles an hour roadway?
That's probably a better question for Rick to answer.
Okay, Rick?
Yes, if I may, Chairman. So when we gave this project to our municipal services team and the traffic guys, basically what we have for RDMIs is the 35-mile-an-hour roadway as you go to the northwest and the more straightaway that goes east and west. So that's 35 miles an hour. And when we look at the current curve of this particular location, it doesn't meet any of that speed requirements. And so the goal was to basically make a recommendation to make that curve meet the 35-mile-an-hour minimum per our, it's basically the AASHTO geometric design standards. And so that's what created that 35-mile-an-hour speed.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions before we entertain the applicant?
I do. Commissioner President. So to the staff, for the eventual houses that would eventually go here, is this Independent School District or Blue Springs School District?
I almost believe that it is Blue Springs here, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's Blue Springs.
Okay.
Reasonably certain it's Blue Springs.
I'm pretty certain.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, anyone else with a question before? If my memory serves me, the McBee group, were you present at the outset when we swore in those that would present before the commission? Speaking to the McBee group. You can unmute.
Oh, can you hear us all right?
No, I can't.
Okay. Can you hear us okay?
Okay, I see that looks like you're muted on my end. Okay, now you're unmuted.
Can you hear us okay now?
You're coming through loud and clear. The question I presented was, were you sworn in at the outset?
No. No.
Then, if you would be so kind, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give before this commission is the whole truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Why don't we take you one at a time and introduce yourselves and give us your full name and address.
My name is Stephen A. McBee, and my address is 1400 North Bill Johnson, Independence, Missouri. Go ahead.
Zip code. Do you want a zip code as well?
Well, why don't you, we'll introduce yourselves as you're about to speak. If Mr. McBee is introduced himself, why don't we give the floor to Mr. McBee?
Good evening. I appreciate you guys taking the time here this evening. I think if it would be easier maybe for me to kind of give our perspective, and I can do most of the speaking other than Robert, our engineer, if we need a technical question answered, but I'll kind of give everybody the 30,000 foot view, and maybe we can get a tight scope on this. And so maybe help everybody kind of move along. So obviously we took this development over. It was in receivership. I bought it from a bank years ago. As there's been, many meetings and different conversations that have transpired throughout that period of time. So where we're at this evening, and as we resubmitted the plat that you're looking at up there, originally it was 145 lots as encompassing the total project. We're now down to 100 lots. So it's basically shrank by 50%. And to give you an idea of dollars to that, just so we're all understanding and speaking apples to apples, just roughly $100,000 a lot, that would be 4.5 million in lost revenue. So as we're trying to come up with a solution to the scenario that we have in front of us of how do we keep this project alive? How do we get the rooftops in there? It's that the question earlier, it's a Blue Spring school, but it's an Independence tax base. So Independence, Missouri would receive the tax revenue from these homes. Obviously how that's distributed is beyond us, but they would receive that. So we look at this development and finishing it out. There's issues with water, some of the ways that the water's running down on the road now. Also, one of the things I want to bring up, obviously, as the name indicates, Rock Bluff Development, this is a hill of rock. I think Stuart alluded to that earlier when he said that this whole bluff that's left is basically one big chunk of rock. So the challenge is from a cost perspective of doing this development, we're on thin ice, so to speak, of getting it done and making the dollars make sense that work. So the existing houses that are in place, I know that there's been some complaints about water running down a hill. Anytime that you have a hill, you're going to have water running down that hill and have to mitigate that water. So us doing these next 47 lots that we're looking at this evening would be a huge benefit for the current residents in the first phase that was existing when I took this over. And so as we look at this, we've been back and forth a little bit with the city and and I say back and forth, just discussing options is probably a better term. And both Rick and Stuart have done a good job. Obviously, they have rules to follow. So they look at a development or a situation from a very, okay, this is what the spec says. This is what the city calls out for this exact deal. But I beg to differ. There's an opportunity here that's going to end up being vacant land if we don't get the terms on this, where we could add these 47 rooftops, which would not only add that tax revenue base to the city of Independence, but would alleviate all the phone calls to the city about the water mitigation by developing this last portion. So we've dropped lots, and now we've dropped more lots to get to this 100 to make this thing a feasible development from a cost perspective with what we're looking at. And just so you're aware, the city and Rick and Stuart have done a good job. They've worked with us on, like, originally it called out for this size of curve. We went in and said we could only do this many linear feet of curve, say that be 300. There was some meeting in the middle, so to speak, of where we ended up being at. Okay, we're not going to do this big a radius. We're not going to do that small. We're going to meet in the middle on the radius of the curve, and that would suffice. And so there's been some give and take, I'll say that. So looking at this phase 2, not only would it mitigate the water issues from this rock hill up here, it would obviously add a pool to the community and finish out the development as it should have been, or as it should be finished out. So, I had a 2-hour meeting today with Central Bank of Missouri, who's doing the financing on this project. they knew the meeting was tonight. Keith Higgins out of Blue Springs, who's the regional manager for the developments on this size, basically has a lot of concerns. And I'm trying to convince them to stay in the game to finish this development now that it's down to 100 lots. So I just want everybody from the 30,000 point view, and I know that's a long-winded 30,000 point view, 30,000 foot view, but I'm trying to let everyone kind of know and bring you up to speed on where we are this evening. And so as we hear our, I don't want to say arguments, here are points versus what Rick and Stuart's points are. We're trying to solve a problem, get the last 47, help all the current residents that are in place and finish this development out now that it's missing 45 lots from where it originally was due to obviously all the challenges of the rock, etc. And so I think I'll kind of table my conversation there and let you know. And so the sidewalk, the sidewalk though, basically the sidewalk's out because there's no way to put that in. So that's what I'm saying. I'm going to do the curve. Okay, so the sidewalk, we have sidewalks going all throughout the neighborhood. Obviously, every time you build a house, the sidewalk goes in, and that's on both sides of the street all the way throughout. They were wanting to put a sidewalk per, I don't know, call city code, city, whatever. Well, the original development agreement from the people that went bankrupt and went into receivership that they're trying to put onto us now. It's not feasible for this project. And it's not, if it was just a sidewalk and I could put the sidewalk in, the concrete, that'd be great. That would work. But the way this slopes off into the creek, I mean, it's just impossible. That basically is a deal killer right there. I mean, to do all the amount of dirt work it would take to put the sidewalk on R.D. Mize Road, which would dead end at the neighborhood anyway on that end and just enter into the neighborhood. So the sidewalk wouldn't go up in front of the other single family residents on that side, continuing on toward Pink Hill Road up R.D. Mize. So anyway, so we're willing to do the curve that we discussed. And I mean, that's about a $500 and some $1,000 down a little bit now, but with the dirt work, so $380, but the dirt work for the sidewalk. So I think that's really the significant push-pull here that we're talking about. We'll do the curve as agreed with Rick and Stuart, but we can't do the sidewalk. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at.
Mr. McVeigh, do you have anyone else that want to speak to the other items as recommended by staff?
Yeah, I think just let Robert.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a clarifying question real quick?
Yes.
With Mr. McBee's comments, it was difficult for me to ascertain whether he was saying the word curb, C-U-R-B, or curve, C-U-R-V-E.
Yeah, so yes, I was saying curve, C-U-R-V-E. That's just my age education.
And Mr. McBee, we're talking about the first recommendation by the city. Is that what we're discussing that? So you've seen all the recommendations and your issue is with the first one, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to let Robert elaborate on that a little bit, and I'll let him say his name and address and to the board, to the planning commission.
It's Robert Walquist with Quist Engineering, 821 North Columbus, Lee Summit, Missouri. I guess the discussion, the first developer agreed to improve R.D. Mize, the curve on R.D. Mize, that corner there, and then connect the sidewalk from they had a proposed entrance on the north side of the project and connect that sidewalk along R.D. Mize. Well, that creek literally starts, the edge of that creek goes 15 feet down from the edge of the asphalt on R.D. Mize for about 300, 400 feet. So there's no way we could put a sidewalk along that side of the road physically without us taking over that bank, you know, that existing creek right there. So that was the issue for the sidewalk, and staff still would like us to connect that sidewalk to the south entrance, the existing south entrance, and we would like not to do that. That's our recommendation. And then another one was that landscaping along the back of those lots, the two lots right there along the creek.
54 and 55.
Yeah. It was that exhibit, Stuart, you had number 6, when you want to pull that up. I think looking south from Artie Mize. No. Is that number 6?
Yeah, that's
okay. It was probably your last one. It was. Yeah, there it is, right there, 13. So that brush right there is on a steep, like a 1-to-1 slope. It goes straight down about 10 to 15 feet. And that sidewalk wouldn't be far enough away from that road or get flat enough to put it in. And then that would be the landscaping also. We're not going to clear that. We're going to keep that brush.
And if I can say one thing here, this is Steve McBee again. So the homeowners out there have asked us to make, are we going to leave those trees? They like that as like a shield against the road, which obviously that bank dropping, it's on a 1-to-1 slope, dropping 15 foot straight down. Everything would have to be removed. That basically would be a nightmare.
Even when we take the corner out.
But those are the two, that's the only two comments we really have a problem with or would like to avoid.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone, Mr. McBee, anyone else in your group can shed any additional cost to benefit, especially as we talk about the thorn, which is the road, the walkway, which is in your declaration is almost impossible.
Yeah, no one else will speak on our behalf.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure I understand.
Please identify yourself. So,
I'm sorry, this is Joe Lauber. I'm the city attorney. I'm actually an assistant city attorney in this case on this project. So the question I have relates back to the point raised by the developer in the last segment regarding number 6. And I guess my clarifying question is for staff is when we talk about having the plat indicate that no permanent structures be placed within the drainage easement, do trees count in that circumstance as a permanent structure? Or are we talking about more like buildings or other, kind of constructed structures, if you would?
Stuart, that's a question.
I think Mr. Borders might be answering, but he's muted.
Okay. You would not include trees and shrubs and natural features. It would include, you could not put up a shed or a swing set or something like that could deter the storm water there. It would also be in the stream buffer.
So if I understood the applicant's question, it sounded like maybe there was concern about having to take those trees out. Are you saying that that's not a concern about having to take the trees out?
No.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the concern was just there's a landscaping requirement, and I haven't had a chance to look at that regulation, and he said landscaping screening along the rear of the property line, according to I'm sorry, it was number 5 that we.
It's 2 lots, lots 54 and 55.
It was comment number 5.
They're asking for some landscaping back there, but we would have to be in the creek to do that, where they would be calling on the back of the lot where there's currently already a tree buffer in place.
The idea is that if the owners of those lots decided they didn't want to look at the trees anymore and decided to cut them all down, there's no buffer then.
Oh, okay.
There's some way that we can work with you to ensure the buffer of the tree line would continue there. That would be fine. But
that's right on our end.
Guarantee that it wouldn't be cut down and there'd be no buffer there anymore.
Well, and we can put a landscape buffer along with the drainage easement, if that you think would help.
I think we can work something out on that. We just want to make sure that there's something there.
Yeah, I understand.
Cut down by the future landowner.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Stuart, talk to us about this sidewalk again and the practicality of it along Artemise.
Well, I think Rick is going to address that issue.
All right. Rick, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So obviously, in staff's perspective, we were just looking at the concerns that we've had from residents there about walkability and connectivity and things of that nature. So that's what really brought up the sidewalk issue. With the completed plat, that may not be as much of an issue now that there would be walkability within the development. Obviously, our biggest concern, and this has kind of been the concern, I think, back since 2003, was just the curve and the deficiency of the curve. So that was the reason for the sidewalk. We are aware that, if that sidewalk's in place, that it could have connectivity all the way to Little Blue. I will say, though, initially when this came out back in 2019, the sidewalk wasn't necessarily a requirement. What the hope was that when the developer came in and redid that road, that they would grade that sidewalk in at the time. Excuse me. But back then, from my understanding, their intentions were to use some of the license surcharge funds to be able to build the sidewalk, and that would be kind of a cooperative developer city cost developer cost share. Obviously, we don't collect that fee anymore, so that money is not available to do that. So just in full disclosure, that was part of the back in 2019. The discussion wasn't to have the developer put the sidewalk in, but it was to have them try to grade that in. That being said, understand that, obviously these guys are looking at it. We don't go out there and do the surveying on it, so we don't know the actual complexities of it. And realizing that the commission can approve any, all, or none of the conditions that staff has recommended. But I will say that staff's biggest concern has been the curve, always has been the curve, just due to the safety aspect of it and the sight distance of it. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Rick, the commissioners have to rely upon the good information that you and staff put together. Obviously, there's a challenge here. Am I hearing you saying that if we can, for safety reasons and maintaining the 35 miles an hour, we can live with, if we can get that, live with that, you can live without the sidewalk? Is that what you're saying?
I would say that, as far as staff's perspective, our most important aspect of it was indeed the curve. And, if they're willing to do that, then I think, obviously the sidewalk was an issue just for walkability. I think they're going to have that connectivity internally. But at the same time, that was the most important aspect from staff, was the curve.
Okay.
Mr. Preston, do you mind if I ask another clarifying question?
Absolutely, Council, I would appreciate it.
And this, I'm not sure if this is actually more of a question for the applicant or for staff, so I'll just throw it out there, and maybe both would like to answer on this. So I apologize, I do not recall from the earlier discussion exactly what Mr. McBee said, whether it was really more of a cost prohibition or more of a space prohibition to do the sidewalk. But if city staff is comfortable with the developer addressing the curve, but maybe not doing the sidewalk, is there still room that, you know, in the future, if funds became available or something like that, that there could at least be some right-of-way reserved to put a sidewalk in later in that circumstance? Or is it simply because of that rock wall that there's no, you know, the cost of making room for a sidewalk also is what the real issue is?
In my professional opinion, I don't think that, you know, running a feasibility study on that, when you look at the cost to put in a sidewalk, and I don't know what the city would be willing to, I guess, ante up in the future, and I'll let Rick elaborate on what his thoughts are, but it would take so much work on a one-to-one slope. It would never be within the code, even in the future, Rick. I don't think with the creek running down there and what you guys would have to do, it would never be what I would consider like in compliance with what the slope, you're never going to get the right slope that you need to have with that watershed and the creek that's in place.
Yeah, like I said, what I would add is, again, that was, you know, I think the sidewalk was one of those aspects of trying to mitigate the cost of the actual road improvement back when this initially was looked at with the developer. I can't necessarily say, you know, funding mechanism wise. I mean, obviously this is the road to be maintained by the Municipal Services Department in that respect. But yeah, again, we don't look at the geometry of it or the how difficult it may be or the cost effectiveness of it. We were looking at it in terms of the walkability for the public and in terms of the complaints that we had received with the phase one that's in there now.
Mr. Preston, or Mr. Chairman, if I may then, so it appears to me that based on the applicant's request and, you know, kind of trying to balance that with the staff's request, that obviously if everyone looks at recommendation number one, there are two sentences in number one. And so it sounds to me that the applicant is accepting of the first sentence, but is asking that the second sentence be stricken. Is that an accurate description?
That is my interpretation. Let's get feedback from Mr. McBee.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. That the second sentence on there would be stricken from that so that it would only to include the curve portion of the work in our scope of work.
Okay. And then as for, excuse me, I apologize. As further clarification, just back to the issues with 5 and 6, it sounds to me like there was not a concern about the conditions provided in 6, and that it sounded like 5 we had resolved, because it sounds like what staff wants is to keep the trees and to keep the buffer. And so the resolution of that would be to put something on the plat that would require trees to stay as opposed to having them taken out, which I think I understood was the concern initially by the applicant.
What would be the appropriate language in that, Rick?
I think it's just a matter of if the applicant has a different understanding of what the restriction at 5 is, because I feel like the applicant thought that the staff and the applicant were at odds on that, and I think that they're of the same mind on that. I just want to clarify that with the applicant.
So I think if we put an asterisk in there and said along the rear property line with existing trees.
Yeah, I think we agree with the number 5. I think Stuart explained it to where that code just basically says that
If at any time in the future, a current resident
Wants
would,
to put it,
would
right.
want to remove
wouldn't have the
those
ability.
trees, he would put something in writing, Stuart, and that would put something in there that we would be able to maintain or put in the buffer strip that the city.
Yeah, and we'll put a landscape easement.
A landscape easement, as well as, as Rick was stating earlier, or maybe it was Joe, but I have no issues at all putting a larger right of way if the city in the future deems it feasible for them to put a sidewalk in for whatever reason and wanted to do that. I mean, I have no problem putting whatever in writing that allows them a perpetual right of way or easement for them to have whatever time, 20 years from now, they come into a bunch of money and want to put a sidewalk out there, have at it, basically.
Okay. Well, based on those comments, then it sounds to me like number 5 as written is acceptable to the applicant. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then, and then with Mr. McBee's most recent comments, what if the second sentence of number 1 was reworded to read a right of way for a future sidewalk shall be provided along the north side?
Yeah.
Continue with that language.
Absolutely. That would be just fine. That would be perfect. Because Robert will show that on the drawings, future right of way, and it'll all be on the DOT, recorded on the deed of trust, everything. So yeah, that would be no problem at all.
Would that be acceptable to staff?
I'm not sure. So you're saying that you dedicate more right of way along the lots that are already sold?
Because
I'm not following exactly.
No, we wouldn't own. We don't own the existing lots. This would just be 56 and.
This would be the lots.
Oh, on this phase then.
Yeah, just 54 and 55.
So we're talking about another 5 feet of right of way along along those 2 lots, basically.
Well, you're
That's
gonna
150 feet.
Yeah, it's about 100.
And that's to the north side of Artemis.
Correct.
So it would be just those lots that also have the back up to our demise. It's just those 55 and 56 or whatever.
Yeah.
54, 55, and 56.
And then you have a huge right of way along that curve.
And that's what I was going to say. The curve, but even going up our demise, their right of way would be
flat.
sufficient
It's
to do
flat.
it.
It's just along that creek it's having the issue.
All right.
Would that work for staff?
Staff would be fine with that. Yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Any additional remarks by staff? Any additional remarks by the McBee group?
No, not at this time.
Then we will close I'll declare the public, but first, Commissioners, do you have any questions of the McBee group or staff before we close the public hearing portion?
I have a question, Mr. Nesbitt.
Mr. Nesbitt, go ahead.
Are we putting curbs on this street, or is it just going to be off to the grass? On this, fixing this curb, are they going to put curbs in?
So I can answer that if I may. So the expectations was for a 2-lane roadway with the larger radius, but basically leaving it as it is without a curb section. Right now it's an open swell ditch through there, and so there's really no place to actually curb anything. So it would just actually create more erosion along there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then my question is there not curb already on Artie Mize going up to that spot? I mean, I saw a picture where you guys had the sidewalk and curb. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is that going to continue straight out like that or not?
I'd have to yield that one to Robert. I don't recall how far that curve goes up.
There is no curb along. There's no curb on Artie Mize. There's no curb and gutter on Artie Mize except over by, right there.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah. There's no curb there, but I thought on down where we're connecting, supposedly connecting the sidewalk, there was a curb. Or was that on another street?
No, it's north of this location.
Yeah, it's north about, oh, what is it? Yeah, no, that's probably about.
If you go to one of the earlier slides, perhaps 4.
Yeah, it's like 50 feet or so, 50 to 100 feet from our project.
Yes, to the northwest, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah, there is a improvement.
Keep going.
That does have a curb and gutter section, but it's further
Yeah,
north.
there it is, right there.
And I thought that back part of that hill was part that they're wanting to develop, so that street would go that way. I'm trying to figure out why we're not putting curbs in at this time. Since we're fixing the road, why wouldn't we put curbs in at this time?
We're just doing the fixing the radius. And it would be curb in the middle.
Well,
it wouldn't be.
And there's no curbs going on down RD Mize, and putting that curbs on that radius. The reason they stopped as well is because it's almost not feasible to do it. If you go out there and look at it's a 1-to-1 slope, which means for every foot, if for every 12 inches, it drops 12 inches. It's
Okay,
like straight up.
Okay, I understand that. So the creek, there's a creek in this picture here I'm looking at right now. Is that creek on the other side of the sidewalk?
It's south
if
of
you
the
look at-
site.
Keep going down that road.
If you look at 13, the slide we were on earlier, where those trees are at,
That's where the creek is, correct?
yeah, right through those trees, it drops off like at a 1-to-1 slope, and there's no curb, and it wouldn't continue on around RD Mize toward Pink Hill Road either.
Okay, well, I understand that, but if we come more north, as everybody's saying, that creek drain north, or does it drain south?
It drains north.
It drains north, so it's going on down towards what we already have curbs on, correct?
It crosses at
Eureka.
It crosses under Eureka at a double 4x7 concrete block.
Okay, thank you. Now, so this creek area here that we're looking at with these trees does not have any standing water at any time, correct?
No,
It's
So
basically like a dam detention.
it's dry.
it's a dry creek basically until it rains and it has water run through it.
You are correct, yes.
Okay. I understand that. I just still trying to figure out why we're not putting curbs in at the time if we're having the road fixed up there. But I understand the cost factor and not into your guys' pocket, but maybe the city could answer why we're not having curbs done at this time. Or is that something we need to take up to street commission or?
Well, when we did discuss this with municipal services, that wasn't one of the things that they expected to see there, just because of the fact that it really wouldn't tie into anything. Technically, the curb is actually part of a drainage system, kind of like a pipe, and if there's really nothing to connect it to, there would really be no purpose to have it other than just to spend some money to have it there. But typically when that kind of thing happens, usually it just creates more erosion around the curb since there's nothing actually to tie into.
Okay.
But one of our discussions did not include that.
Okay, now I'm looking at this curve, the curve up there. How's that? Are we going into the creek side to fix that curve, or are you going on the other side to fix that curve?
The creek side.
Okay, so you're gonna fill in there a little bit then?
Correct.
Get it. It'll take that radius to a softer radius, so to speak.
Okay.
We have to extend that existing box culvert about, I think, 80 feet.
Okay.
So
my next question is going to be on that hillside. There's no plans for no building on that hillside in the future whatsoever. I think
no,
that's
not up.
104.
Yeah, no, not on 104. We don't have any access to that from the bottom. The top, there's no way to get a road. They wouldn't allow a road access on that steep grade up there.
Who's going to maintain the property is what I'm going to ask next then.
It'll be sold to an individual and they'll put one driveway on it. And
Single, just like if you drive down Eureka, there's a lot of single family, like tracts of land that were there. So if you know anybody looking for a beautiful hilltop piece of land, that will be one.
Okay, well, I was just curious on that because I mean, you had it in your specs there, so I was curious what was going to happen to it. So basically,
It'll be a single rock top lot, but it'll be pretty.
Commissioners, any other questions of the Nesbitt group or staff?
So are we going to do surgery on this, or are we going to continue this case to the next meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I believe
we can finish this and move it along.
Okay.
I believe, to answer Commissioner Wiley's question, really the only modification that is needed at this point would be that addition that we discussed earlier for number 1, that would modify the second sentence to add the phrase a right of way for a future sidewalk. So really right of way for a future would be the only additional words added to that second sentence.
Okay, so we're not changing 5 and we're not changing 6. Is that correct?
Correct. We confirmed that with the applicant.
Got it.
All right. Commissioners, if there are no further questions, the chair will.
If there aren't any public comments, then as we discussed.
Is there anyone, do we have anyone else supporting this application? Hearing none, do we have anyone opposing this application? Hearing none, then I will declare the public portion of this hearing closed. And commissioners, I'll entertain additional questions or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to be consistent with what we had done earlier in the meeting, if there is a commissioner that would like to move to modify staff's recommendation to add the language as discussed, we would do that. I would recommend that we would do that separately, get that approved before actually doing a motion to approve then the application as modified.
Counselor, would you give us the language and we'll incorporate that language into the motion?
Certainly. What the motion would be, if a commissioner is so inclined to modify the recommendation number 1, the second sentence would be modified to add the phrase a right of way for a future sidewalk between the first 2 words of that sentence.
Could I suggest additional right of way for a future sidewalk? And
Sounds
how much
fine.
what are we talking about? Another 10 feet, another 5 feet? McBee, do you have any suggestions, Robert?
And
They can't.
do we have
I'm gonna say a motion.
Are you satisfied with this?
Yeah, I would say 10 feet.
Oh, you want 10 feet? Okay.
Additional right of way of 10 feet?
10 feet.
So an additional 10-foot right of way for a future sidewalk shall be provided along the north side of R.D. Mize Road from Brookridge Court to the end of the existing sidewalk on R.D. Mize.
Correct.
Someone could say so moved if they are so inclined.
I so move it. Mr.
Where did we
Nesbitt.
get a motion from?
Mr. Nesbitt.
Mr. Nesbitt, thank you. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second from Commissioner Wiley. Staff, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Young, Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And Vice Chairman Preston?
And that's a yes. This application has been approved. The application will be forwarded to City Council.
Mr. Chairman, we only approved.
No.
Yeah, we only approved the motion to make the
Well, we
amendment.
approve the motion and will be forwarded with the Planning Commission's recommendation.
No, not yet. So we made an amendment to the staff's recommendation. So at this point, if a commissioner would like to move to approve the application as amended, that would be appropriate.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Preston.
You have a motion?
I make a motion that case number 21310-03, preliminary plat, McPee's Custom Homes LLC request approval for the Artie Mize and Eureka Road with the additional wording that we added.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I second.
Is that Commissioner Ferguson?
Yes.
All right. We have a motion. We have a second. Staff, will you call the roll?
Sorry. Commissioner Ferguson?
Yes.
Commissioner Nesbitt?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Can't hear.
Chairman Preston, Vice Chairman Preston.
Yes. All right. Then this motion is carried. The application will be forwarded to the City Council with the Planning Commission's recommendation. Thank you, staff. Thank you, the McBee Group.
Thank you.
Staff, do we have anything else for the good of the order?
I do, Vice Chair. I know last meeting we talked about used cars and what kind of information that we can pull with that from neighboring cities and what the conditions are here as far as number of used car lots. So I did prepare kind of a quick slideshow that kind of covers what we do in terms of approval of the special use permit for used cars and some of the findings that we had from the neighboring cities. So if you like, I can go through that slideshow and we'll get a copy of this. I know some of the members aren't here today, but hopefully this will be the fun portion of the end of the meeting. So let me share my screen and let's hope this works. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so going into this, diving into this here, let me go to this next slide. So first, I'll just kind of talk about some of the things that we actually, how we actually approve our permits here. So in C2 and C3 zonings, those zonings, which are commercial zonings, they're actually required to have, to meet section 14409 and section 14704-09, which is the conditional vehicle equipment sales standards, and then the special use permit criteria. And that's what you guys are used to seeing when we have these meetings on it. I'll also note that car lots are actually allowed in industrial 1 zoning as a permitted right. They do follow the 14409 conditions. I'm not really going to talk about that today because we really wanted to focus in on the special use permit portion of that. So I'm just going to take a couple of slides, kind of go over what the 14409 includes, and then the 14704, what that includes, and then we'll get a little bit more into some of the interesting findings that we have from our neighboring cities. So 14409, that's kind of our conditions. Basically what that is basically right here, this is kind of more of the specifications, if you want to call it, of what a car lot needs to have. And It includes location, lot area, 100 foot from a residential, church, school, or park. This can be reduced or modified with the special use permit as approved. There is a requirement to have a permanent structure on the site. It has to be at least 400 square feet, heated structure, permanent structure. That requirement also talks about the outdoor displays. Elevated displays are allowed. They're not required in the setbacks. Required setbacks, outdoor displays like the vehicles, there must be curbing or some kind of barriers, or parking areas must be paved for those lots. And then, of course, landscaping, which you guys are probably familiar with, they must comply with perimeter landscaping per section 14503 of our code. And the vehicles must be operable. They must actually have, be able to be licensed. And repairs, if any repairs, and understand this can also fall for new cars as well as used cars, but repairs must be conducted in an enclosed on-site building that's permanent. So that's 14409. Those are those conditions, and pretty much all car lots will have to follow that. So when we get into the actual special use for the commercial zonings that we talked about, C2, C3, they do require special use criteria to be met. And although these are not verbatim, I had to kind of adjust some of the language just to fit them into the slide. But basically, we look at the compatibility of the character of the neighborhood, of whether or not this, in this case, used car lot, is it compatible, the extent at which it's compatible with the zoning, the nearby zoning, the impacts on public facilities. So, for example, if this is next to a park or something, is there some kind of impact to it or other type of facility? Sustainability of the property, we'll kind of talk a little bit about that later, but whether or not, in this case, a used car, does it sustain the property that's there? The extent at which it may be used, or the extent at which the use will be detrimental or to the enjoyment of the property or the area surrounding it. Extensive stormwater, air or water or noise pollution. And then we continue on. We actually have quite a few. The extents that are there for, is this a need for the community? So in the case of a used car, is it actually necessary? Is it needed there? The ability of the applicant to satisfy the requirements of the code. Is the person actually applying or running the used car lot? Can they actually do what the code says? And then conformance to the comprehensive plan. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. The extent at which the public facilities and services are available. So that's like the water and the sewer, power, that type of thing. Is it available for that particular site for the use that it's there for? Conformance to the comprehensive plan, and then the impact to sustainability or revitalization to the given area. And we'll kind of talk about that one too a little bit later. So those are all the special use criteria that we use. It's not necessarily a specification. It doesn't actually say this has to happen or this doesn't have to happen, but we have to look at this in terms of, when this commission and as staff recommends is a special use, does it meet these criteria? So one of the considerations, and I kind of broke this up into staff concerns, but then there's also positives to, approving of a used car lot. One of the staff's concerns is, we have a lot of applicants that apply for a special use permit to put in a used car lot. The applicants are from the property owners. In some cases, it doesn't actually represent the operators of the used car lot. And so we don't really know who it's going to be. I mean, I know we hear some things from the applicant as to who they plan to have or that they have a tenant lined up, but we really don't know if that person actually running the lot is, have they had experience before in running a lot? Do they have other lots in other cities that may have violations or something like that, or the types of vehicles, and in some cases, the number of vehicles that they intend to display. And so that obviously is a concern to us when we get some of these applications. In many cases, used car lots don't typically revitalize an area. They can't sustain it, and we can kind of talk about that on the next slide. But revitalization.
Rick,
yes.
Pause for just a moment. And the application for a special use permit for a used car lot, is that tag to go with the property or does it go with the operator?
It goes with the property. If I understand that correct, Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong, but.
It apparently does, because that's what we did last week. That was last week at the last session.
Yes, that was the property.
There was no
owner.
operator in the picture, but there was a property owner.
Correct.
So I suppose I'm answering the question. But I was wondering, did we get that right? But apparently we did.
Yeah, we got it right. It's just that's always a concern to us because we don't necessarily know who's going to be operating it, because a special use permit basically just goes with that property. So the applicant or the owner can do it, or the actual operator could, request it. It still goes to the owner, but yes. So we don't necessarily know sometimes who's actually going to run the car lot. In many cases, it brings lower economic growth to the city than some other types of commercial businesses. That being is, in many cases, a lot of the used cars that are sold aren't necessarily sold to people within the city of Independence, for example. And then one of the concerns, and this is kind of more of a current concern that we have, is that the rise in used car lot applications. We fear sometimes that it could be due to the fact that new car supplies are in short supply. There is limited parts availability, and we know that. And then as new car prices go up in price, there's kind of a concern that staff has that we might start getting more applications for used car lots. But there are positives. Positives are the fact that when this is a special use permit, so building, landscaping, and utility improvements can be considered as part of that approval. And that can be a positive thing to that particular lot. Parking lot curbing and street access as a condition can also be improved. In many cases, we have some used car lots, like at intersections, for example, that have, maybe it's a gravel entrance, maybe they have 3 or 4 entrances, maybe there's no defined actual curb access or defined width of an access off of a road or a driveway. So that can actually be a pretty significant improvement to an area, especially an intersection, if you can control some of the access points. Signage is another thing. If there's some dilapidated signs or something in that area, that's always a good opportunity to take a look at that and consider if that needs to be improved. And then sustainability, in many cases, and kind of similar to the last case, approval of a used car lot could sustain the area that has been historically underutilized. And so those are some of the positives and negatives. So as we get into Independence, so we have 66 car lots. Now, this does include new car lots as well. Understand that you have new car lots that also have used car lots. And then it also includes just those used car lots that's all they sell is used car lots. And so, and as we go further with the other neighboring cities, that's kind of the same thing. It's their total used car lots. And in some cases that includes a used car lot that has a new car lot. So I really didn't know how to, because I know there was a question about how many are too many. And so I don't really have a good metric other than to maybe look at it per capita. How many do we have in our city per population? I'm sure there may be some other metrics that we might consider, but this is kind of the best way to, I think, do a comparison, at least to the cities that we had. So about 123,000. So that gives us a lots per capita of 1,000, or one lot per 1,863 residents. We do approve it, obviously, with a special use permit with conditions. This is a map of where most of those are at. By the way, this is the number along each roadway, if you're curious. And so this is a map representation of that. Obviously, you can see along 40 Highway and 24 Highway, that's a pretty significant corridor for the used car lots. And then, of course, Nolan Road, they're kind of in the middle. That also, though, includes the new car lots as well. Hopefully that comes up okay on the guidance screen. So the fun part, what do other cities, so we did contact these 4 cities and got some information from them in regards to the number of lots that they currently have now. I say approximate because they're changing all the time. You know, and it does that, happens here that way as well, where, you know, maybe one day you've got a couple of car lots that are operating and then, you know, a month later you don't. So kind of a snapshot at the time. So I use the approximate. So Raytown, you can see they got about 15, population of 30. So that means lots per capita of one lot per 2,000 residents. Blue Springs, 16, population of 54,000. It might actually be more because I think that's an outdated population, but it's 1 per 3,375 residents. Lee Summit has 25, population of 101,000. That's 1 lot per 4,040 people. And then Green Valley, 11 lots or 11 used car lots, population 15,000. Lots per capita, 1 to 1,364. So kind of what does that look like in comparison? This is, you know, Independence is, so really when you look at this, the bottom number, you want to be higher if you have less lots. So, you know, Green Valley is a bit of an anomaly. It's a smaller population, but, you know, they're kind of leading the pack on the number of used car lots per capita. But Independence is right behind it. So it's actually higher than Raytown and Blue Springs and Lee Summit. So kind of what does that mean in terms of a summary? What we did look at, and back here, I'm sorry, I kind of missed this part. So they do, Raytown approves it as a conditional use with special conditions. Blue Springs has a conditional use with conditions. Lee Summit also approves with a special use permit, and they can require conditions. And then Green Valley is a little bit different. They have a certain commercial districts that it's allowed to be in with development regulation standards. And they also do have some restrictions and like overlay districts for car lots. But generally speaking, in summary, all the cities do follow a similar car lot approval process as we do. So there's really nothing different there. Based on the lots per capita, Independence may be saturated in used car lots compared to our neighboring cities. The special use permit, though, I think it's important to understand is the mechanism for the city to determine if a proposed used car lot is the best and highest use for that property. And that is, again, similar to what a lot of other cities do as well. Some of the things that we could consider looking at is whether or not we would add additional requirements as a condition of approval. So kind of, for example, back in that section 14409, like for example, Blue Springs, I think, has specifically requirements for a 6-inch asphalt surface, 4-inch concrete surface. They only allow a 40-foot wide, I believe it's 40-foot wide entrance to a car lot. And so that if they have something more than that, that would have to be adjusted. They do have additional screening requirements that are specific to pretty much everything that would be approved. So one of the things that we could consider is, you know, tightening those type of restrictions. I don't have a good, you know, I can't tell you specifically what would be the best thing to do at this point, but that could be something we could look at. But really what that would do would just make it, you know, as you start adding these conditions, it kind of leads to more cost to develop that lot or to improve it for that special use. But with that, that is all I have. If you guys have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them.
One point of note, the number of car lots that we've got, probably half of them would fit inside of one of the car lots in Lee Summit. If you think about the size of those car lots, I mean, they literally go for a mile.
Yeah.
You know, so we got a lot of small lots, and they've got a limited number of much larger operations.
Yeah, that's true. In Lee Summit, for example, so they had 25 lots. 10 of those lots are actually, if I'm trying to remember right, 10 of those lots are new car lots as well. So they only really have 15 used car, like smaller used car lots. The other 10 are, they're bigger Dodge or Subaru dealers that also have used cars, that type of thing.
Yep. All right. Rick, what else for the good of the order?
That is all I had. We'll email this slideshow to you guys, and if you guys have any other questions, just let us know. And
we were going to talk about whether going back to meeting in session and live next to one another, but I think probably given COVID and its number of variants and continuing number of variants, we probably will defer, but I will take discussions from commissioners as to what are your thoughts about continuing in virtual or going back to chamber.
Chairman Preston, I was going to say before the
Commissioner Young, we can barely hear you.
Oh, well, I don't know why. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Much better.
Okay, sorry. I was just gonna thank Rick for putting that together so quickly. And how would we start adding some stipulations, even if it would be knowing who the operator is going to be, and entrances and things like that? How would we go about doing that?
If the commission wants, we can basically start taking a look at that and put some recommendations together. It would basically be a code amendment that would go before planning commission and then eventually council. So we could do that if the commission chooses to have us do that.
I feel like if we decide to do that, that we should include the other members of the commission. We've got some key people missing tonight.
Right.
Oh, of course, I'm not saying
Yeah,
tonight.
no, I know. I would like everyone to read that and sort of marinate with it, and maybe if we could table a big discussion about that until next time, because I know Cindy's going to have a lot to say about this too.
But thank you so much for putting that together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thoughtful and informative. All right, the next item that we wanted to talk about, let's talk about, do we continue in virtual and table discussions on that until the numbers go down and the number of hospitalizations and infectious rates should go down? We'll continue that discussion for another day.
I mean, it's my opinion that things are bad. Like, I feel like the last time we talked about it, I was way more optimistic and thought we were going to be able to meet in person. And then things are, so many people I know have it. I feel like we should wait.
If I can add, actually staff is required now to do virtual meetings. And so just so you guys are aware.
Yeah. All right. What else is good for the order? Then, why don't we adjourn at 8:44? Counselor, we appreciate you. You're thoughtful and you bring a lot to the table. We appreciate it. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. You really helped a lot tonight. There were some complicated things that happened, and I was grateful you were here.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I enjoy working with you.
Well, we appreciate you. Commissioners, good night.
Good night.
Thank you.